Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Existential Side Quests. I'm Jenna,
I'm Kimber.
and today we are going to be talking about, or doing our third episode, talking about Ceres, our third in the series on Ceres, with a focus today on a little bit more nuanced of a topic, Hekate. Now,
Yes.
one of the things we're going to be looking at today is how we can see ourselves in this story, in the partnership, in the camaraderie between Persephone and Hecate. Persephone's journeying and decision making, and where does that show up in our lives? And also, how can we see the Hecates, our allies in our decisions, in implementing our decisions and following through with different things? Where are those showing up for us as well?
Mm-hmm.
Party.
Great. Is there a lag?
There is a lag.
Okay,
Oh, no.
apologies. So that's going to be interesting. Okay, so Hecate is not really thought about or like mentioned as much in the series myth, but pretty much Hecate was there with Ceres after Persephone had been abducted, and she's kind of presented as an older woman. She lives in a cave, and so she rules over torches, and so she's kind of comfortable sitting in that darkness. And so her role is to not make it all better for Ceres, but to accompany her on this journey where we can't go backwards to before Persephone was abducted. I can help you figure out how we can find her, accompany you on this search, and also this experience of grief. But she's represented as this guardian who is the bridge towards truth, helps her find other people who might know more information, this companion to the underworld as she ventures down to try and help find Persephone. And then she uses her torch to bring light into a space of darkness.
Mm-hmm. I really like all the symbolism, even the bringing light into a space of darkness. Like, I feel like we can all think back over our lifetimes and think of many examples of when there was darkness and who were those people that showed up bringing light for us into the situation. That might have been some sort of an embodiment or an experience of Hecate, of spirit
Yeah.
giving us that energy through another person.
Mm-hmm. So what can we talk a little bit about like what we mean by liminal space?
Yeah, definitely. Liminal space is one of those like hot topic kind of words, but the
Mm-hmm.
liminal space is the time in between what was or what used to be or the status quo, what we got used to, and what's coming next. It's that place of transition or waiting. And there's a part of it about not knowing. Within the not knowing comes an invitation for deep trust, trusting the process, trusting that the vision will come. And if you are an astrologer, this might sound a lot like Neptune transits, actually. Neptune is kind of has that like illusion, delusion, illusory kind of energy to it. And when we're in a Neptune time, we can feel really foggy about what's to come. And it's about waiting, just like this liminal space, waiting for that next vision of what is the next step to come through, being intentional about that pause and sitting with any discomfort that comes up.
Yeah, I like that because I was looking at Hecate and I was really thinking about how is it different from Pluto, because Hecate can offer a lot of opportunities for transformation. And it's interesting when you think about this actual myth because Hades and Pluto are the same. And so after Hades abducted Persephone, so there's that Pluto destruction that's already happening that we see with Pluto, then Hecate comes into the balance. And I like what you're saying about Neptune being similar to Hecate's role here because we're in this waiting period. But I also would want to tie in Saturn simply because Hecate is the elder and this woman who has a lot of wisdom. And so it's while we are waiting and it can be confusion, there's also this sense of just we need to be doing something, like we need to feel the grief, like we need to, like there's a need to be isolated, to kind of withdraw as well. What do you think about that?
I like that a lot. I love bringing Saturn in. There's multiple reasons why Saturn actually fits, because part of Hecate is also about understanding when boundaries need to be put in place. And Saturn is a lot about boundaries, putting up boundaries around what you want to do, who you want to be, what's important to you, what really is the great work of that Saturn diligent energy expended over time. And that feels boundaries are so important in that. And when we're talking about spending this time in the liminal space, we don't know how long we're going to be there.
Yeah, and I love that because Hecate is literally the guardian of thresholds, and it's a boundary. And Neptune sometimes needs boundaries, but there's this dissolution of it. And so I love that you named the word boundaries with Saturn. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, it is like this hybrid experience of, oh, I like you need to be here. You're in the boundary, and that we don't know when it's going to end. And it's just, but we have to work through it and be present there.
Mm.
You can't escape it. There's no shortcuts here.
Right. And I like that you added Saturn into the mix too, because with any sort of boundary decision that we have, any crossroads in our lives, we can feel really alone at that point. And Saturn has that element of solitude, not necessarily in a negative way, but in a way where we're withstanding the fact that we need to sit in something. So this is about sitting in that decision time.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think that it's really important for people to kind of think about that of like, even when you're going through a grief or challenge, how important it is to feel like there is a support, like a person that's able to sit there with you. And like, why does that help, even if they can't take away the pain?
The camaraderie. Yeah. Oof. It can be so helpful because even if the person can't take it away or can't really do much about it, you're still the one in the driver's seat, the one that's actually making and implementing those decisions whenever those actual avenues come available. It can actually be really validating, though, to have someone with you that is actually bearing witness to your experience.
Oh, I love the word bearing witness. Like, I just think it reminds me of what we do as astrologers too. It's not about taking over and like, fixing it or taking the wheel from this person, because it's almost like are you really helping this person? Like, you're trying to support, but by trying to do it for them or make them feel better and rush that process, that's it could do more harm.
Definitely. And then if they're not ready for making that decision in the process, then they're definitely not ready for that next space. They're not ready for what's after the liminal space. So when we push people or drag them through something too voraciously with our own agenda, that's not what we're talking about here. That's not the energy of Hecate.
Right. I love that.
The patient elder.
Yeah. What do you think about so I think we're going to explore, there's an asteroid, the number is 100 called Hecate as well, and just like there is the planet Ceres, and so where that is in your chart. But I'm wondering, like, we can think about when we need a Hecate in a time of difficulty, and when we also show up as a Hecate, like a guide for someone else during a difficult time, and like what that shows up as. But do you feel, when I think about that Saturn Neptune vibe, I'm wondering if your own experiences, like, do you need to have had lived experience? Because how Hecate shows up, it's not that she's not stressed about being able to support Ceres. She's not trying to rush it along. And it's like that comes from like wisdom of just living a long life. Do you feel that helps you become a stronger Hecate if you've had the same exact experience as this person, or does it need to be, can it be different?
I would say that it could be really helpful to have lived through the same experience. However, so much of Hecate is about trusting your inner wisdom and your instinct and your knowing, even knowing when to pause and knowing when it's time to venture through that liminal space into what's next. So what's interesting is it could be someone who's had similar experiences, similar trials and tribulations, or perhaps it's someone that's just more in touch with their inner wisdom.
You're making me think of when like a certain Pisces sun and Capricorn moon, like if you have these like placements in your chart, and like how you can kind of have that, like you are a young elder.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting too, because as you were saying that, I was like, my knee-jerk reaction is, no, you don't have to have gone through something to give someone the understanding, because some of my first clients were all people in their Chiron returns, and I haven't experienced it. And I was like, why does Spirit keep sending me people at least 10 years older than me? What is going on? But it's more about the fact that Chiron having a prominent placement in my chart means that I just have a little bit of intuitive knowing about that energy. Just like if someone comes into your life and you're in a struggle and they haven't necessarily lived through the same struggle, maybe they just have some energetic familiarity with something about that struggle, though.
Yes. Like you should ideally, not ideally, but likely in order to really lean into your Hecate energy and strength, you would need to have been through some sort of challenge or transition. And one that's not, that you can't just like work hard and get through. Like I think that Neptune, like this confusion, or there's still this residual leaking even after you're through it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, if you've been through a Neptune time and really had the ability to surrender to that wait period, that liminal space, then perhaps you could show up as a Hecate, a positive expression of Hecate in someone else's life, regardless of what that specific Neptune is, because on a spiritual level, you've been there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I like that a lot. It's interesting, too, that in the sky today, I know we peeked at this earlier, but in the sky today, Hecate is at 11 Aquarius and the sun is at 10 Aries. So they're actually making this aspect pattern to each other called a sextile, that free-flowing, positive, easy energy between them. And the moon for this episode, because the moon moves pretty quick, is also at, well, now it's at 12, so it's moving, but it's at 12 Virgo. So it's creating God. It's like as we shine a light and Hecate is there and we're having this conversation, it's blasting energy into the moon. And Hecate is very much associated with the moon. I love it.
Yeah.
Really neat. We don't plan these things based on the transits. We don't plan our topics based on the transits.
No.
However, it feels very spiritually supported that the universe can be like, yep, we agree. Talk about this today.
Yeah.
So there must be some wisdom within that we could all be leaning into right now with regards to what's going on in the world, what's going on in our daily lives, what's going on in the astrological weather in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. Recognizing who these people are that can help us through these liminal spaces.
I'm interested to, can we put up a chat question? I don't know who we have there, but just like, what is the scariest part of being in a liminal space to you? Is it the uncertainty, the having to make a choice or not being able to go backwards, the grief? Just curious, like what would you, in your experience, when you've been in these times of transition before you're into the next phase, what feels the most frustrating? And then Jenna, if you have a personal answer, I'd love to hear it.
Well, what is the scariest part of being in a liminal space to you? Uncertainty, having to make the choice, grief. What is the most frustrating to you? Well, as an Aries rising, it's the pause. It's definitely the wait, because I'm like, do the next thing, do the next thing. And sometimes when I get that feeling of like, oh, something's shifting, something's changing, or something that I didn't anticipate has now come across. So that feels like a pivot. It felt like there was something going on that wasn't expected, even if that liminal space isn't so much about the time between what was and what's next. It's more about the time between trusting that this was the path and now being thrown onto a different path. So I'm a person who's like, I'm going to take the next action. And sometimes that's very much not what I should be doing.
So it's hard to sit in like that, like feeling the void potentially.
Yeah.
That's so funny, because I was going to say it's also, I guess, sitting in the void for me, but it's the grief of, I can't believe that just happened. And like, almost, I'm still grieving the past. And I was wondering like which place. I was like, I mean, I have a moon Pluto, and I was just like, this makes sense. Or, I have a 4th house stellium. So really being able to, I'm paused and I'm not ready to think about what's next, because I'm still upset that I'm here. And it's like this void of, I can't go backwards. I know that, but I'm not ready to think about moving forward. And that totally makes sense with the Aries rising. And so it's, both are saying the void, but we're like looking and holding on to different sides.
Yes, it's definitely the void through the reasons of our moon and its configuration. Because my moon being in Gemini is very much Let me fix the problem. Let me think about this. Let me move through
Yeah.
it. It's not a sit still and wait moon.
That's so interesting. Yeah. What about when it's like about making a choice?
Mm.
The some of the maybe the choices that are at your disposal aren't what you want.
Yeah.
And yeah, like how does is anger welcome in a liminal space or with Hekate, or is it, or Hecate, or is it just or is that unproductive?
I'm making this a banner now. I
Okay.
love that. Is anger welcomed in a liminal space? I feel like you said that to the audience, but it was meant for me.
It's for both. Yeah.
Like spirits like, listen up, Jenna. You're learning today. Because honestly, I've said for a while like I want to get more in touch with my anger. But if I'm not in a liminal space where the anger is available, if I'm quickly trying to leave that space and
Yes.
move on to the next, then yeah, I'm shooting myself in the foot.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, I think, but you like grief exists in a liminal space, and how much of grief is connected to anger?
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
agree. You know what? I feel like there's productive anger and then there's unproductive anger.
Mm. Mhm.
And it's about no recognizing, because you don't want to like push it down or say like, oh, I'm not allowed to be upset that I'm here. But when it's starting to like, productive to me is like we're moving through this feeling, we're processing it, when we're using it in that, in a way to kind of, this is unfair, we're really focusing on like the injustice of it all,
Mhm.
and like woe is me, then it's like we are no longer having the agency over our lives. It's like we can't control what happens to us or what other people are doing, but it's just kind of figuring out, what can I do now, what is within my locus of control, and you can still be upset about the fact that you're in this situation.
Yeah, I really like that. I think sometimes it's hard to know unless you're in an extreme end of it. Like,
Mm.
is this still healthfully experiencing anger or healthfully experiencing my grief or my more difficult, more uncomfortable emotions? Or am I now ruminating? Am I now choosing
Yeah.
suffering by staying here?
Yes, I think that's really interesting, because I do feel I learned in my liminal spaces where I'm grieving the past, you allow yourself time to do that. But then there's a point where we are pining, like we're holding ourselves in place.
Mm,
And it's not that you want to force, like, okay, a week from now, I'm done doing that. But it's
mm.
just that, okay, you can be sad or still look back and still moving forward and working through it.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up the time limit too, because it's so much of our society is around like, okay, just get over it. Okay, well, you're still sad about this. Come on, get back to work, get back to being a productive member of this human existence, rather than being like, maybe we don't have to pathologize the person who's still upset 3 years later that their spouse passed away and it's still life altering for them. Maybe their chart says that grieving love after being deeply attached and having that level of vulnerability was a huge mission for them in this lifetime. So sitting in that grief for an extended period of time is actually also part of their soul's evolution.
I love that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
not everyone's on a timeline. I love what Camille said. Did
Yeah, I
you
want you to say what Camille says, because it connects to, I want to say what something to you, but yes,
both of them or just the last one?
both.
Okay. So Camille said the most frustrating for me is people showing up for me in a way that feels inauthentic. I'd rather you not show up at all than with a chat GBT written card. I will say ChatGPT is a great therapist. No, I'm just kidding. But and Camille's next comment was, yes, she's getting in touch. Well, I'm getting in touch with my feminine rage currently, and it's been healing. I'd love to hear more about the evidence of it being healing. Like, what are you experiencing? Does it feel lighter in your body? Is your overall mood improving? Is it more acute or more over the big picture?
Hmm. I was thinking in connection to what Camille said with the part that's frustrating to her. So I know Camille gave consent, but her Hecate is in her fifth house of sincere, authentic self-expression. So when people like it, so I really do think too, and when you were talking about if someone's still grieving their partner 3 years later and how we're saying like we can pathologize it, it makes me wonder how our where our Hecate is in our chart. One is kind of helping us figure out who would be an ideal Hecate. Like you don't need 15 people in the cave with you. You need
Mhm.
like one, you need a confidant or just like one person that can really sit with you in that darkness. And it might be different depending on the situation. And where maybe if someone's still grieving, we're trying to rush them along, but it's like that's our, I would love to look at the synastry between our Hecates. And it's just like, what kind of guide does this person need? And you don't, it's not just like you're always going to be able to be that for your very best friend.
Mhm. Definitely, definitely. Yeah, and I think too that like recognizing when we've outgrown a certain relationship that perhaps did symbolize Hecate, or there was a time when this person showed up as Hecate to our Persephone, and that
Mm-hmm.
maybe at that time it was appropriate, and at that time the hierarchy or the emotional maturity of the two people within the relationship, it made sense for that situation. But years down the line, sometimes we're like, oh well, let me just reach out to XYZ. I think about it too when people say like, I had this really good therapist for many years and then I left and then I went back and it wasn't quite the same. And it's like, well, maybe your needs are shifting. Like they were great 10 years ago, but, and no judgment to either person at all. But like sometimes we need a different person to be holding our hand in that darkness.
Yes. Mm-hmm. What if, so with the moon, it's like it's how we nurture ourselves and others, and it's also how we can reparent ourselves. What if there isn't a physical Hecate? Like, what if we have to be our own Hecate?
Mhm.
Like, and so you like, I'm supposed to, we're using Hecate as like, you're not alone in these liminal spaces, but some, like, what if you are?
Yeah. Wow. What if you are? It's interesting because, like, we're right back to Saturn vibes of the solitude there. And it's like, well, maybe Hecate actually is, self-help literature. Maybe
Yeah.
Hecate is, different divination tools. Maybe Hecate is your relationship with spirit, with God, with your guides. There's other ways that I think Hecate can show up. And there's also the idea of like, if we zoom out of the 3D sphere, the matrix, all that, whatever you want to call it, and we're like, have you ever done inner child work and showed up for yourself from now
Yes.
back in the past? Like you are your own Hecate across that liminal time warp kind of space.
I love that. And I was just, because I was thinking about in times where I've been in those liminal spaces, it has felt very much having to rely on myself, but my Hecate is in my second house. So it's helping me prove myself to myself. And I wonder if, like, where the planet that disposits it is connected, but my Jupiter, so my Hecate is in Sagittarius, my Jupiter is in the 12th house. So, like, what's hidden in that, the veil between that here and the other world. And I feel like divination tools really help me, or in this one space I was asking for guidance and I was heard, but it still was not a physical person that was that guide. Maybe if Hecate is next to Venus, or if it's in the sign of Libra, you would get that guidance and support from people in your life. I'm not sure, but I was just thinking, yeah, it's like there's nothing wrong with your Hecate can take on different shapes and come to you in different ways.
Mm-hmm. And I think too that not shaming how Hecate shows up for us and kind of having an open mind about it. I'm specifically, again, talking to myself, but like my Hecate is in Virgo and it squares my moon in Gemini. And
Mhm.
sometimes I think that I can almost take it as like a reflection of my own inner ability. If I lean too heavily on someone else, it's actually showing me that like I'm not trusting my lunar intuition. That tension, I'm leaning too far on one side and putting all my eggs in the Hecate basket instead of noticing like aspects are about integration. I need to integrate Hecate, not just cling to her.
Yes.
Like if Persephone just clung to Hecate, I don't think they would have moved between worlds. Hecate's not trying to carry you.
But and how would Hecate respond if she did?
I honestly, I feel like a deep presence in that moment. Like we're gonna get really intentional in one part of the liminal space and sit there. And I feel like the invitation there is almost to double down on the sitting in the not knowing at all. It's like,
Yes,
yeah.
I love that. Because it's also, it's it reminds me of Inner Gold and
Mm.
how it would be an opportunity to help this person get their, like, do not take the inner gold away from them of
Mm.
you can do this and I'm going to wait here. It reminds me of wait time as a teacher where we give more, like you're supposed to don't fill in the void or this discomfort because then you're taking the burden of learning off of the student.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Hecate, in the fact that she was like an older crone, like kind of full of wisdom character, or, you know, member of the mythological population, I think that there was this intuitive knowing that, like, whether she had seen the specific problem before or not, it was about the fact that there was these repetitive cycles of like, we've made it through the liminal space and this will be no different. So her modeling what it is to trust the process, what it is to trust the discomfort of threshold crossing, can really kind of, in the same way that, like, if you're on a bridge over water and everyone's jumping in, you're kind of like, okay, I guess it's fine, I'll jump in too. But if you're the only one on the bridge, you might be like, this is deadly, I can't do this.
Ooh, yes.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Camille replied about going deeper with how rage has been healing for her. For me, the rage has brought more clarity and groundedness. I actually feel like I have more life direction / life purpose clarity since allowing myself to be angry. Before the rage, I was focused on my peace and zen, and that was also healing, but it felt like spiritual work / direction. Now the rage has brought physical direction and clarity. Wow. That's a great reflection.
Oh, I love this.
Like, you've brought it into your body. You've made it earthbound. You've grounded through feeling the physical experience of the rage, and therefore your physical body has had time to ground and center in it to bring that physical direction and clarity too. Like, that's really profound.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Damn. I need to get to work on my rage.
What are you thinking now?
I'm thinking that I really like what Camille's saying about the different levels with what she's implying, about the different levels with which we can engage liminal space.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that it's kind of similar to how we talk about the different ways people can meditate. Like, there's the literal sit on a mountain, sit in the forest, and just like be zened out with your legs crossed and eyes closed and be silent. But then there's also different things that different people will find meditative, such as working out or going for a run or going fishing or being on a boat, like swimming at the beach, like anything like that, where it's like, what works for one person, what it means to meditate, what it means to sit in a liminal space for one person, what it means to feel rage. Like, Camille's taking the experience of meditating on rage to a new level that actually is way more harmonious with how her body and her soul really wants her to experience it.
Yes.
And you said fifth house?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's conjunct her Chiron.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's special. We should look at where her Charlico, I probably just said that wrong, but Chiron's wife is in her chart, because that's a lot of action all at once. That's a lot of being guided by elders all at once. Whew. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting too, because Ceres is conjunct her sun, remember? So it's
Yeah.
very, let me see. Fourth house. So all in the same. I want to talk a little bit about, I think maybe I lost my train of thought. Oh, when you were witness, the word witness, and how sometimes we don't want to be seen or witnessed, or there's some discomfort with that, especially if you are someone who's used to being the Hekate in other people's spaces, but where it would be like, I just don't want you to see me in rock bottom. I want to be alone and isolated. And so even in those moments, it's hard to be able to channel Hecate within yourself, let alone have another person sitting with you and seeing it as a gift.
Mm,
But
yeah.
why, I was going to ask, like, why, what is uncomfortable about being seen in a moment of despair or challenge?
I'm going to type it out. With being in a moment of despair or
Mm-hmm.
challenge.
And oh, I love what Alexander said of I've started to ask what I want from anger. Anger is a choice. So what do I want from my choice is a question for me. And I think that helps you, like, what do you want? Like, what's the outcome of it? Really helps to keep that anger productive.
Yeah. Yeah. Like what is the actual information within this anger? What is the greater message of this?
Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot. I love that you brought up people who are used to being Hecate and then actually now need to be Persephone and find Hecate or lean into the vulnerability. It reminds me a lot of Cancer when we talk about the little old woman who lived in a shoe and really she wasn't old. She was just taking care of everyone else. She was showing up for everyone else and not showing up for herself or allowing someone else to show up for her, such as what we're talking about right now. There's that level of vulnerability, right? To switch from being the caregiver or the all knowing and to switch over. And I love that you already brought up inner gold because that feels like a large part of this too. Because in the book about inner gold, the psychology of projection, he
Yeah.
talks about the story of projection and the inner gold theory tracing back to in Indian culture, they talk about like, would you be the embodiment of God for me? That's how they kind of frame it. It's like, I'm projecting onto you that you're great at something. You are the God of something. So you get consent in their culture in order to project that inner gold, in order to do that transfer. And he explains that when someone says yes to that, that they now cannot show up for you in a different way. They're not allowed to then switch it back and be like, well, could you also show up for me that way? Like the role is taken super seriously. And that
Ooh.
other person can't demand extra of that God representative person either. It needs to be a very clear situation. You are Hecate, you are Persephone. We are dealing with this instance right now until the inner gold transfer has completed and given back. So I
So
wonder.
it's not a reciprocal relationship.
Right. And if people, right, exactly. So like if it's kind of like the mentor mentee relationship, like if you are the mentee, your mentor is your mentor. There's not really the switch of that can be really uncomfortable and dysregulating and actually upset the balance of the relationship overall so that neither one is getting a benefit of a mentor mentee sixth house relationship. So keeping it clear and like kind of unilateral, like you are the person that is the incarnation of God. I am the person asking that of you. That is the relationship, point blank, period. So I think what can happen is if somebody is representing that incarnation of God, another way of saying it, if someone is looked up to by millions of people, if someone is a celebrity, if someone is the leader in their field, that can almost become like a burden. Like you're not, you have to take that on, and that's not an easy task. And to then not only switch out of that mode, turn that off, but then turn into the other side of it, I think being uncomfortable in that is not even embracing the complexity of that shift and everything that our psyche actually goes through in order to switch over.
That's fascinating. I mean, I'm still stuck on that if I'm your Hecate, I need to go. You are not my Hecate in
Yeah.
this moment, in this thing.
Yeah. Because I think it punches holes like in the same way that like I keep coming back to the visual of holding a hand crossing a dangerous road. And it's like if I'm holding the hand of my child crossing the dangerous road, I'm the one in charge. I'm the one that's making sure that we're guided together. Yes, they're still walking, they're still doing their things, but I'm the one accompanying them, making it safer.
Yes, and I think it's easy for us to see that with when there's a size difference and like a age gap. But I think too, I'm thinking too of like if we're in a tunnel and with torches because of Hecate. But if I'm lighting your torch and there's like this chain reaction where then you can light a different torch and so on, like what if my torch goes out? It's which direction do I lean back to the person who I was lighting their torch? No, I lean this way. But it's like sometimes that it's like once we've been helped through and then something happens, are we as close to our former Hecate or mentor? And so like I think that's really what you were saying is just making me think about how when we were talking about those weird dynamics between astrologer and client or like a mentor mentee, and they can become weird and imbalanced. Now we want to make sure like this person is Ceres and they're going through this thing, and to just not do too much transference or projection onto them and then kind of expect something. It's like, where are you giving from? And I think just thinking about Hecate as like an older woman, it's like she's lived her life. She's using her wisdom to help Ceres through. She's not sharing this, like her experiences are not taking the center stage here.
Mm-hmm.
And she's not rushing Ceres to decide what she wants to do.
Yes. But also once Ceres has decided, once the threshold has been crossed, recognizing that this was a temporary relationship. This was a temporary type of relationship, similar to inner gold. Once you are ready to take back your gold, I no longer need you to embody what I value. I no longer need you to be the image of God for me. You don't have to carry my gold, and I'm ready to take it on. I'm ready to equalize. I'm ready to take it back and recognize that what I was valuing in you is because I value it in me, and now I see it in me. I have grown to embody it. So once with Hecate, once Persephone has grown through the experience of moving through the liminal space, Hecate releases. Hecate says, yes, we have had our time together, and now it is time for you to move on. No mentor-mentee relationship should be forever. No sixth house relationship, in my opinion, should be forever. Like even our aunts and uncles, which are sixth house relationships, we do eventually get to an age where we are a little bit more like peers.
Mm-hmm. And I love that because we're thinking about the seasons, that the transition where Ceres is still having to have separation from her daughter for the rest of time. But Hecate doesn't show up every time winter is here because Ceres it has the tools to work through her grief on her own in that time, according to that myth. And so that's just very, very interesting that you're saying it that way. And it makes me think about with my clients that come multiple times, it's over time, it's like building that capacity and then maybe transition, like Andy had suggested before, of into tutoring, where it's like, do you want the relationship to always stay the exact same? Is that what's best for this person?
Yeah, it reminds me of like in therapy when you start doing skills-based talk therapy and gaining skills for your toolbox so that maybe you can then embody these therapeutic qualities for yourself. It's why we say Hecate also represents our inner knowing, our inner wisdom. It's like an inner gold transfer. We're saying, I can't quite see the wisdom in myself yet. I'm not tapped into my intuitive knowing. Can you embody that for me, Hecate? And then once I'm ready, just like once Demeter had gone through those cycles of losing her daughter and then reuniting, she's able to say, actually, I can hold space for myself during those winter months.
Yes.
Yeah. I like that a lot. I'm glad you brought up inner gold. That was unexpected.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting it either.
Good side quest. Really good. Yeah.
Let me see. I think I have some other questions.
I'm prompting myself with the transformation you must experience to trust your inner voice. That's kind of what we were talking about with things with is it important for people to go through the same situation as us?
Yeah.
It's like it's less about the similar situation and more about having experience with transformation, having experience with liminal space.
And that's why I don't want to put an age on it, because I think depending on your chart, you might go through a heavy dose of Plutonian transits at a younger age than someone. And then also, just because someone is older and looks like an elder physically doesn't mean that they have developed to a point of being able to be an elder to people.
Mm.
Like how much, like if you're not living life or experiencing loss, how can you support?
Mm. Yeah, the only people you'd be able to support would be those with even less lived
Hmm.
experience. And
And yeah, I would say too, I think when I like, even looking at the question that's on the screen, that can, that is a struggle for me with being seen in a moment of despair, is like when this being seen is also accompanied by a comment that is only being used to make the other person who's supposed to be Hecate comfortable, where it's like, oh, everything works out, or this happened for a reason. And it's like, this did not happen for like, or we're not there yet. And it's, but it's just like, where if you haven't been through something like this, it's a lot harder for you to be able to hold space for these challenging things, or to, it's like you will feel uncomfortable, and it's like, I need to fix this, I need to fill the void.
Yeah, it's like those comments that can often be seen as toxic positivity or spiritual bypass. It's like they definitely can, intention versus impact. They can definitely have that impact if that person really isn't ready to embody or to look at the bigger picture, the spiritual opportunities. Sometimes that takes a level of insight over time. Like looking back on something painful that happened to me 20 years ago, I can see Jupiter, thinking of you, Jupiter, like working through loss to create bigger opportunities. But if someone had said to me back then, there's a reason that this is happening, it's all part of God's plan or something like that, I would have been in touch with my rage and anger in that moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's okay, there are two people in my life who have been just amazing Hecates for me, but there was one when I was just starting my fertility journey. We had no idea. I had thought it was going to be easy peasy, but she said she was so happy for me. She's like, she had supported other friends who had gone through challenging experiences, but she's like, I'm so excited for you, and I'm here for you no matter how this journey looks. And she actually was. She was there. She checked in. She was there. But it was like almost like, I didn't expect that to become a liminal space in my life. And I wasn't happy. But I thought that was such a nice thing, because it wasn't like, oh, it wasn't guaranteeing any outcome, because we can't, like, Hecate didn't know what was going to happen. She has a torch. She can't light up the whole tunnel for us. Like, she's at the boundary. She doesn't know what's next. She's here as your, like, I think a witness or a companion is a little bit more equal than like, I'm going to lead you and I'm going to mentor you, but I'm also not the all-knowing guru.
Mhm.
I think that's the difference with Hecate, is that she's wise enough to know I don't know everything. But then another thing was with my dear friend, this was maybe 10 years ago, but she said, it was Gilmore Girls.
Mhm.
Whenever I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, she's like, we are where we are.
Mhm.
And that has been like a motto at different times in my life, where I'm like, this is where we're at, and you're with me. We know this, but just kind of naming, like, I don't need to know what's next right now, and we can just sit, and like, I want to be around people who are able to be like, this is where we are.
Mhm. Mm.
Yeah, that's okay, instead of what we want, or trying to make what I want to be true. Like, it's just like trying to justify everything is not going to be useful.
Mm.
Imagine if Hecate sat Ceres down and was like trying to unpack, where did we go wrong? How did this happen? How did Hades? It's like, well, that would have stressed her out, because she wasn't looking after Persephone when that happened. That's not
Yep.
helpful.
Right? Oh, that's so good. Maybe that's why she only had a torch, so they couldn't lay out all the evidence in front of them.
Right. It's like, we got, yeah, this is burning. I mean, we're just going off on a tangent, but I'm just like, yes, it's like, what are we wanting to use this time for? And I do think it's kind of nice to think about the torch versus a whole well lit space, because it gives you that you have to focus on just this part instead of kind of being overwhelmed. And I
Mhm.
think that's where we can get into that shadow Neptune or shadow Saturn, where it's just like, life is just suffering and misery, and kind of like in this fog about it.
Mm. Yes. Andy's working on her inner silver, she says, which is great because silver is actually up in value right now. So,
Yes. I want to know what's the difference between inner gold and inner silver.
yeah, I'd love to hear, Andy. I want something that came to me as we were discussing different ways that Hecate can, and more positive ways for Hecate to show up. be careful with what Hecates you choose. And Hecates, be careful with which Persephones you choose, because they're not all going to be well matched. And I think that that's important. I've had friends or people in my past ask me for advice on certain situations, and they almost have like, they recognize that they are no longer, their situation isn't serving them. They have one foot in the liminal space and a hand reaching out for Hecate. And I'm like, okay, let's go. Liminal space time. And then it's like, well, actually, I'd rather just hold one hand and then have one foot in there. And for me, with the Aries rising, I'm like, I'm giving you advice once. And if you don't take it, I'm not your Hecate. If you're not actually ready to move through this hardship, this threshold, then I'm not the person for you. But similarly, there might be, the reverse can also be true, where that Hecate, like, I wasn't serving my friend by having zero tolerance, but basically it was just a bad matchup. It was like, I'm not ready to hold space for the same conversation multiple times. That is what you need. So you need someone that potentially has a little bit more compassion for a slower pace.
And I think that, again, this is going back to that episode about astrologers, but if you were able to recognize that you're not the right Hecate if you're being chosen, connecting this person with someone who could be a better Hecate, it doesn't mean that and there's a way to do that without like abandoning it. So you can show up as a support and as a friend and not have to be in like that role of guide.
Yeah. And especially when there's multiple roles going on at once. Like if you're trying to guide someone and have that unequal inner gold transfer type of sixth house relationship, but then in other instances, you're having seventh house relationships or fifth house relationships. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's a lot to juggle, especially if some of that sixth house stuff is very deep and personal. It can be hard to then casually go out as friends or casually go have some fun in a fifth house situation.
I like that too, because especially when you're thinking about how this Hecate Ceres relationship is not balanced or equal in that way, of just so specifically in those types of relationships where we are on equal ground or ideal, then that's something to kind of reflect on.
Yeah. And the whole, like, when people are like, it's like seeing, well, I forgot what they say it's like, but when you see your teacher at the grocery store or something like that, and it's like you've taken this person who is an authority figure in a certain situation, and now they're it's like being at the circus. Like, what am I seeing? This is not correct. That we need to be mindful of that if we are being Hecate for someone or asking someone to be Hecate for us, that there might be times where it doesn't feel as natural. And should we take certain measures to avoid confusing the relationship? Or are there going to be certain places where we can't avoid that, such as the grocery store, and we need to move through that discomfort possibly informing the discomfort of the liminal space?
Yes. It's just making me think about even relationships with therapists in this space. It's where actually when I was going to therapy, I could use my therapist as Hecate, and then it was easier for me to be okay with my friends showing up as friends. It takes a lot of pressure off of those relationships, or I can lean on them and they can be an elder in this moment, but there's not like this resentment able to build up. It's just, I think that that's really helpful. And because I don't know what's going on in my therapist's life. The Libra rising in me at first didn't like that. I'm like, this feels weird that I'm talking only about myself and I know nothing about you. But that's the point of the relationship, the focus is me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like they know you on a level of intimately close friendships, but you know them on a level of like maybe an acquaintance.
Yeah, but it's like you're not even a close friendship because it's like a third part. They're zoomed out, and so there's no stake in it. So they know so much about me, but there's this stake is not as high. So we know we're getting like ideally with a healthy therapist a subjective or an objective point of view.
Yeah. And they're going to be somewhat, at least, resilient to the drama, the details, the excess within our lives. They're going to have Saturn boundaries around what is theirs to take on, and how much of this situation, of this showing up of Hecate, is going to actually impact them on a sustained level.
Mm-hmm. Can you read Camille's quote? Because this is perfect.
Yes. Camille said, I used to be such a great Hecate with patience. Now I'm more like, I support you, but I have to keep my boundaries in place and can't keep having the same conversations. That was hard for my people at first.
So I was gonna say one, if you are the Hecate, sometimes like you need to have a way to decompress or to have a space to like relax. We don't just, once this person is done, we don't jump to being a Hecate for somebody else. Like, what does self-care look like? But two, I think what Camille's saying is, what if someone just wants you to rescue them or is not sitting in this space? They're like, no. And it's where this liminal space, we never know what time is going to actually be spent there. But what is the service here if they're not engaging?
Mm. Yeah, and actually, is it a misuse of our own gift as Hecate? If our energy is being put into something that, for instance, in Camille's case, and it sort of in my case with my example earlier too, like this is kind of prevalent. If you're putting your support in someone who's actually not using it to their advantage, then you're not only is that person wasting your time, but it's preventing a different person from being supported by you. So it's, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and
A
it's
lot.
like they will help themselves if you remove. And I think you can always check back in, but I just feel like sometimes we say withdrawing or detaching is cruel, but there's a point where I am now this obstacle or blockage for this person to be able to move forward.
And maybe what they need is like the Hecate witnessing, but like a little less handholding. Like they need the Hecate to walk with them, but the distance enough so that they remember that they're an autonomous person. They have their own sovereignty. They can do this for themselves. Plus, that tends to make the new behavior, the new decision, the new path that they've decided at that threshold, at that crossroads, it'll stick more if they actually are empowered to make that decision for themselves.
And that's kind of the whole thing with Hecate, of giving you tools and choices and timing, so that, but it's like, if let's say in those moments Ceres was responding with them, but if you weren't, it's like you're not going to take the torch with you. It's like, I got another torch at home, but it's like, here, these, you still have the tools and choices. Like, you've done your time. You don't need to be present 24/7 in that liminal space, because there still should be some solitude.
Definitely. Definitely. And part of, Saturn on both sides here, part of it is really sitting in that space, sitting in the unknown. And part of that is recognizing that nobody really has the answers. That Hecate at best is showing you how to trust, showing you how to be patient with that navigation. Yeah.
Yes.
Less about a map and more about the feelings around what you're going through.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's making me think, like, who are the Hecates in my life right now? And I think, and it's funny because I'm going to like almost double back on what I said, because one of them is my friend, and we're able to like move through fifth house or seventh house type dynamics, but then go right into this kind of Hecate space. However, the way we do it is we carve intention around it. It's like, hey, I need to hold space for a second. And I know that you're a person that can hold space for this. Jensen, if you're watching and this sounds familiar, yes, I'm talking about you. So it's like Jensen or I will text each other and say like, hey, there's something coming up right now. Like, when you have a second, like, this is what's going on. And it's often that we're feeling frustrated at a fogged out threshold. And it's about both of us kind of being like, ooh, it's hard to wait sometimes. And then it's like, yeah, I'm bearing witness to that. And I feel that. And I agree. But, we've made it before. Like, we can do this. We have the tools.
I love that, with just it needing to be intentional, carved out time in those types of relationships. It reminds me of my best friend, with just being, we didn't always do this, but we were like, this needs to happen. Otherwise, it's just always leaking into that the other dynamics in our relationship. But it was just, is now I need space, but is this a good time? Like, checking in, like the way that you guys are asking of like, is this time, like, do you have the capacity to show up in this space with me? and you having like there needs to be some patience and compromise in
Mhm.
relationships that are already pre-existing in those like fifth and seventh house in order for it to not become overwhelming.
Yes, definitely. I wonder too, now I'm thinking about the fact that the fifth and the sixth house, and then the sixth to the seventh house, those are semi-sextiles, so disharmonious. But then we have fourth
Ooh,
to sixth and sixth to eighth. I wonder if there's a little bit easier of a time to asking someone to be your Hecate if they're either part of your family, part of your roots,
yeah.
or your intimate partners.
Right. I love, yes. And I'm thinking, because I mean, if you're just saying about parent child, that
Mhm.
would feel like, oh yes, this makes sense. And even vice versa, because I think when parents need a child to be the Hecate as the age, ideally, hopefully it's not when the child's a child, but they are, it's like where, oh, I want to show up for you in this way because you nurtured and raised me. Um,
Mhm.
the higher expression of that. But I really love the idea of thinking about that the fourth and eighth house have a sextile to the sixth and how that would be easier. Yep.
We should trademark this whole episode. No, just kidding. This was our idea first.
Yeah.
Camille did comment back that all of this circles back to her rage. I was angry that I was everyone's Hecate and climbed out of the grief myself. Like, please help yourself and know I still love you. Boundaries.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah, keep going.
Well, I was just thinking that, like, when therapists have therapists, like, we need our Hecates too, even if we are a massive Hecate. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the same thing. And then what Camille's saying of I feel like I'm my own Hecate more often than not. Is that a thing? And I'm like, yes.
Mhm.
And you have
Mhm.
Ceres conjunct your sun. So I think that there's just a lot of um, capacity to nurture
Mhm.
yourself. But I think too, I just think like finding people who can show up in that space is important.
Mhm. Definitely. And I wonder too, Camille, like, is there a part of this where you're connected with spirit in those times too? So, like, maybe spirit or God or however, whatever word resonates with you, even past versions of yourselves, your ancestors, like maybe those are incarnations of Hecate as well.
Yes, I love that you said that because I was like reading something and talking about how some people experience Hecate through these visions or these divination experiences. So,
Oh, wow. Tarot cards could
yeah,
be.
you're not really alone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's so true. Have you ever had that experience when you're like, I'm going to ask my tarot deck this question before you flip it? You're like, I already know what you're about to say. I don't even need to do this anymore. Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
hmm
I think that's probably like, I'm ready to embody Hecate a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm recognizing without needing the external handhold.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Camille said yes.
hmm
Highly spiritual. That's awesome. Oh,
Yeah.
what a deep episode.
I know.
Oh,
That was fun.
it's interesting how, like, I went through all my books and then I chat GBT'd pictures of my bookcases. I'm like, did any of these books talk about Hecate? Nothing. None of my astrology books. But so many of my tarot and oracle decks. So it's like, even within that, there's wisdom there. It's like Hecate is like an oracle, is
Yes.
like this like saintish kind of patron guidance in the intuitive side of things too with tarot and oracle decks.
hmm Yep.
Yeah.
He's also the guardian of keys, right?
Yep.
Just
Yeah.
want to throw that out there. Just like the like keys are a tool. Like, and it's not that she's opening it; she's giving keys.
Have you ever looked into like witchcraft and like witches having like skeleton keys or old keys and stuff like that?
Oh, keys.
And it's less about the fact that they actually go to something and more about the symbolism of what we're talking about, like opening up thresholds, possibilities.
hmm
Yeah. So like
Yeah.
actually like symbolizing I can be Hecate, I have the keys. We can move through this. We have access.
Yes.
I like that a lot.
hmm
We should probably talk about next week.
Yeah. Can I just add one more thing? I
Yeah.
mean, we kind of said that, but I feel just like want to stamp that when we go through that door, it Hecate should be staying behind. Like she is the personification of the boundary. Like she stays in this space for other people.
Yeah.
But it can feel weird. It's like, oh, we should be going together.
But that's why it relates back to the inner gold thing, where it's like when you're ready and you've moved through, you need to get your gold back and kind of like recognize this
You
was
don't owe this. Right. Exactly.
yeah, it's meant to be temporary. Just like Hekate says goodbye to you at the end of that transition. It's meant to be temporary. Yeah.
Okay. So what are we talking about next? I think you should introduce it, Jenna.
Chiron.
Hmm.
We're back to our friend Chiron. Here we are integrating Chiron into the conversation with Ceres.
Yes. So we're going to talk all about the asteroid Chiron, where, like, what does it mean? Jenna is obsessed with Chiron. And then after that, we will have an episode where we compare Chiron and Ceres.
It'll be super fun. And I think we should mention too that after this next little mini series, we're going to be taking our first break in a while. It's a big one. We're going to be doing a lot of research, a lot of traveling. We're both going to different astrologically inspired trips. It'll be amazing. So we'll be taking a 6-week break, but we will be back in May.
Well, no, June.
June.
Yeah,
Flying.
June 1st, I think. But yes, so we have 2 more episodes, 2 more weeks before our break. But
awesome.
We'll be back.
All right, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Bye.